It's natural for us to want to connect as we're hardwired to do so. But by infusing connected devices into every aspect of our lives, our natural human connection has been severely dampened. However, sports can be an incredible antidote. Sports provides the best opportunity for us to come together regardless of race, gender, and social economic status. In 2005, a very popular animated movie by the name of Robots was released. It featured the voice talents of such stars as Halle Berry, Robin Williams, Mel Brooks, and even Hall of Fame quarterback Terry Bradshaw. Early in the movie, Mel Brooks' character, by the name of Big Weld, is featured in a commercial within the movie. Big Weld's the premier inventor on this robot planet, and during that commercial, when asked how he continuously comes up with such creative innovations, Big Weld simply states, "See a need, fill a need." It's a simple statement, yet I believe that it should be applied to most important things in life. When combined, sports and the digital revolution can create an incredible agent for change. They can be an incredible agent for change, reconnecting us at our foundation in ways in which we're all designed. At the Bunker, we always want to engage in conversation with those that are all in pursuits of this nature, in particular in the intersection of sports, movies, TV, and tech. So today, we're fortunate to have as our guest Dan Moroni. Dan is the founder of The SHO. The SHO is a mobile app that seamlessly captures live gameplay, providing its users with their very own live broadcasting sports network right in the palm of their hands. The SHO is partnered with numerous street ball leagues such as Rucker Park in New York, Venice Ball in LA, and Miami Pro League. Since traditional media networks cover less than 50,000 of the more than 2 million games played annually, the SHO lowers the cost of live productions, enabling their partners many more opportunities and monetizing their engagements. In the combining of the worlds of sports and tech, the SHO and its podcast titled Just Play are on a quest to create tangible ways in which sports can change the world. See a need, fill a need. I hope you'll enjoy.
Grew up in the Bay Area, San Mateo, what's now the heart of Silicon Valley. Passionate about basketball, robotics, spent 15 years in the robotics industry working on drones that swim and fly. First as a mechanical engineer, then as a product manager, and always playing street basketball on the side. The genesis is, it's funny, it's a very specific moment. And it was on a phone call with Huddle, which is the leader in sports video analytics, while I was at 3D Robotics. But I mean, to go before that really quickly, my background, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Growing up in the Valley, I've always wanted to do something disruptive. And I know I would say I was looking back, I was very heavily influenced by, Napster and the music industry disruption. I actually kind of really loved watching what Napster did to the music industry, and then the flailing that the music industry kind of tried to do in response, and followed all the copyright law. And I got really deep into, I just found that incredibly fascinating, entertaining. And so in general media disruptions, I've always really paid attention to. And when you're in the Valley, you see a lot of arcs of companies that say they're going to do something massive, and then they get to a certain point, and then they maybe fizzle out, and some do become massive. And I really, like to pay a lot of attention to what I kind of call disruption theory, and what are the kind of the lines, what causes something to truly be disruptive. So when I had this call with Huddle, they started asking me about using drones to film soccer. They conquered the football space, and they were kind of thinking, they saw that soccer was this wide open market, and they were going, well, there's these drones coming out now. They're becoming low cost. Can we start using these? And I was a partnership manager at the time, and they asked me this question, and I kind of had this thought. It just basically set off this chain reaction where I said, well, maybe not today, but this is going to change the world. These mobile devices that we're creating, and at that point, forefront of technology when companies and everybody's kind of musing about what can be possible. But I think, partially because of my sports experience, I know I'd always play basketball at lunch. I really understood the value of video on a really personal level, because I always played street ball, and I didn't play with the team. I didn't really always do film review sessions. I knew that occurred, but I also kind of knew that on a very like spiritual, personal level, like you play the game, you come off, and that's a memory in your mind. If no one was with the camera, I mean, in most street ball, most games that people play, it happens once and it's a memory from then on. But as social media was coming up, and I was going, okay, these tools have the power to disrupt sports. And I didn't have a name at that point. I knew I wanted to do this. I knew I always literally played street ball and was in robotics. And I was like, I'm on both. I have one foot in both courts on this, and I can figure this out. This is what I want to do. This is, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to throw my hat into this. But I really set myself 2 ground rules. Number 1 was we had to do it using consumer electronics. And number 2, we could not charge the club. We had to support the club as the creator and help them and find another way to make money. Because as at that point in the industry, we were already kind of getting murmurs from huddle coaches that it was expensive to use. And if you're a startup company, you're looking for something that's got headroom to grow and to expand your product offering. And I mean, they're coming out, they're charging teams. It was like, maybe $500 to $1,000 a month, and with really no headroom $1,000 a year, and really no headroom to increase that annual cost. I mean, especially if they're not using this media to bring in more money. So I really started pulling this thread. That'll have been almost 5 years ago. And I just kind of started pulling this thread, started tinkering, picking up partners. The show's now almost 10 people, including advisors. It's very much more than me. Got a great team with a diverse background across the country. We're all remote, and it's kind of started with drones and soccer. But as we really started to understand the media landscape, creating entertainment content, we transitioned away from that into basketball, because we could use mobile devices, and it was much more of a simpler production than getting to the more advanced technology. We really focused on the media and extracting the value out of the media. So we're partnered with the street ball leagues. And when I say, people might think of street ball as just what's happening in the park, but it's a little more formal than that. We're partnered with street ball leagues across the country, and this is a movement that's kind of really started from Rucker Park in the 70s, or even further, 60s, 50s. But now there's the Drew League, Venice Ball, Miami Pro, AEBL. There's basketball leagues across the country that start up at the end of the NBA season, when the NBA players basically stop their tour of duty and they go back to their hometown and they want to put on a show for their communities. And in this street ball leagues, they have MCs, DJs. It's a packed house. It's insanely fun. The style really comes out. And we kind of, when I moved down to LA, I went to Venice Beach and I saw this happening, and I was going, oh my goodness, this is a whole different world that I didn't even know existed. Right. And what I was finding, and it really threaded nicely with the show, because, kind of going back to this part where we didn't want to charge the clubs, what happens with a lot of sports tech companies is when they go into the club has these motives around winning and stats, and they get deep in it. And you're dealing with, the coaches are generally in charge of the video because they use it to coach. But I feel like what I found kind of gets lost is like the video is actually this treasure trove of value that if it's not processed, produced properly, like it just ends up on a tape in the closet and then dies basically, when in reality. And then you have a club that's looking for money, and it's going, well, the value's in the media, that those tapes that you don't have is where all your potential revenue is. But if you deal with, if your club is a customer, then the customer is always right. And then they end up driving you into this corner of you're the tech guy. So why can't we use AI to get stats out? And it's like, well, why do you need this? And then, but when I went over to the street ball world, it was like, nobody cared about stats. They were already gathering sponsorships. They were already trying to get themselves seen on social media. And there was kind of, I saw like, wow, this is this short circuit that we can make for this niche group to prove out this cash register, this business model. And no one's really paying attention to this. No one's really messing around with this. I'm not saying that nobody has. I will say that, And One came up through there. ESPN has gone into Rucker Park and has done some productions there after the And One was popular. But what ended up happening was it didn't really translate to linear television very well. And there was a lot of things that would happen on the court that weren't good for TV and things like that. So it just kind of didn't mesh well. And I think it's been ignored once again, and needs something that really connects them to the kind of the modern media landscape, which is what we're looking to provide. So, yeah. And then, back to, I just want to kind of touch on one of your points you brought up about how it really benefits the community. It was very interesting for me personally, not athletic background as far as going through the system, pulling this thread. It was this very interesting kind of almost like a knot that I came across when I realized what the system was doing to the athletes. You kind of get back to this altruistic thing. I don't know. I mean, being perfectly honest with myself, like, I'm not sure how much it's like, I really wanted to be disruptive and change the world and from Silicon Valley and, all this stuff. But then I kind of started doing a lot of reading and getting into the community and realizing that the slog these athletes had to go through for a potential something that was always, the carrot was always further. And, then it's like, okay, you made it to NCAA. You're still not getting paid. And then there's still like a 1 in nothing chance of making it to the NBA. Tough. I mean, I would say that in the past 2 years, like a real passion, fire. I mean, it's like practically what drives us now is around creating a better economic infrastructure for the athletes, creating, a network that supports athletes and something that athletes can get behind and they want to be a part of and kind of this circular economy that really helps clubs at every level, because
that's what I meant by the altruistic part.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, the sports is like run by a cartel. Like, let's be real here. I mean, it's absolutely. NCAA, it's NFL, CBS, all ESPN. I mean, these contracts that are always negotiated, for massive amounts of money. I mean, the reason the price is what it was, we're like, oh my gosh, the NFL is going for another contract. It's X billion dollars. It's crazy. Well, they've cornered the market. I mean, they own Sunday.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, and if you look at the schedule, they, the reason that these other sports, the current media landscape doesn't need other sports to come up because there's only 3 channels they want to push sports to, and then there's only 4 seasons. So as long as they got all their time slots filled, it doesn't matter if you have something entertaining. We got no time for it, and we're maximizing the revenue out of this time, and and we're just going to, keep out competition.
I understand football. I mean, football is a natural thing as far as we love competition. We love out of the 3 primaries, it offers the opportunity for more of the physical clash itself. It's modern day gladiators, if you think about it. I mean, that's a natural instinct that people love. But basketball offers flexibility. Even from the NBA players on down, the game itself, I'm saying. The NCAA and all that, I agree with you completely. Yes, that's a bunch of nonsense, if you ask me. And I'm glad that there's at least some sort of fissure into their stranglehold. So the new agreement, I'm forgetting the acronym, but it has something to do where the certain players or certain levels can share. They can basically make money on their image and likeness, as they should, in my opinion.
Oh, completely.
So I understand the arguments on the other side. I don't agree with them, but the more opportunity that you give someone to be able to expound upon and make some dough on, make a living, or even if it's just a little side hustle on something that they enjoy doing. You can't play forever. I mean, by the time you're 30, for instance, I mean, it's tough to get out there and compete at a high level. So it's really it's a young man's game. You can't get out there and do LeBron James, he's a freak in a good way, type of things at past 30. Even if you are 6'7", 225 pounds, and you're bigger than the average human, you still can't get out on the courts at Venice and expect to absolutely dominate past 30 because the 25-year-old guy can do it for 6 hours a
Oh
day.
my gosh, you're telling me now. I mean,
Yeah,
man, I just wish I was
exactly.
so young.
It hurts now, doesn't it?
It does.
It
Yes.
hurts.
Yes. Ice becomes your friend over as the years
Ben
go on.
Gay, ice, all that stuff,
Yeah.
and you start realizing, set shots from the outside aren't that bad. You
Yeah.
don't have to bang in
You
and
really
try
practice that
to do all
15
this other
footer.
stuff. Yeah, that's a smart play for most people. So I look at it as it's all entertainment anyway. And now you have these platforms, you have these social media platforms that allow for more expression, if you will, which is what basketball is, at least today's basketball.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing. It's a
and it's also, and it's showing, and there's an opportunity, because there are so many channels, and because, there's an unlimited ability, you can put as much media. Social media will always accept more media. It's not just, we're trying to funnel people to the couple channels, ESPN, Fox, ABC. It's no, we'll accept anything. And what I think there's a lot of it proving to us is people are interested in things they don't normally see. I mean, there's times, God, have you watched that documentary on Netflix about the Paralympics?
Not yet. No, I do have it in my queue.
Okay, gotta watch that, because those are the types of things where I feel like it breaks the mold. You watch these things and you're going, oh my God. I mean, how many times can you watch someone dunk a basketball? I mean, even a bunch of different ways. But I mean, you start watching somebody that's got a half a leg run, hurdles, or in the same vein, when you watch co-ed basketball teams and you watch like a woman tear it up against a couple of dudes, they're hitting threes or juking them or throwing dime passes and stuff. And it's, it's the things that you might not have expected, or if you were watching a basketball game and you're watching someone tearing up, and you're like, wait, how old is that kid? Wait, that kid's 13 years old. I mean, you're still amazed. That's still awe that you're experiencing. It doesn't. Absolutely. So, I mean, it doesn't always need to be the pro players. And that's kind of when we came into building this, we just started really taking out the cameras, and whether it was a drone or a phone, and really kind of registered, said we have to use this hardware because it has to work with this hardware, and it has to make somebody who's not LeBron James look good.
Correct.
So we've been filming those kind of tiers of basketball or other sports, and really kind of figuring out what are the components, how do we do this? How do we make it so that anybody's game can look awesome and somebody can follow it along? And, and even when you say, it's people can't compete at the high level, but it doesn't mean that nobody wants to watch that person. Yeah. Like that person still has friends and has followers. And
exactly.
Even if they're not super amazing, they still might have lots of followers. They could be an influencer with lots of followers, and maybe you still want to see them do poorly. Like there's so many different other dimensions to what makes good sport and good entertainment.
Competition is
we're just not even, we're just kind of, we ignore with the current media landscape.
I love that point, because I don't expect anyone to have any interest in seeing any of my kids' games. But for my family members that are someplace else, other states, other countries, if I have an opportunity to not just record some videos and send it over to them, what if they want to see the game live? This makes it possible. So I can have family and friends in other places. We can set it up early. I know there are leagues, and there are some companies that have these things with these fixed cameras. That's cool to a certain extent. I like the personalization that you guys are able to offer. So 1 or 2, 3 people within your family can each take their personal cell phones, which we're using to capture things anyway. And then we go to my little league game for my son, the softball game for my daughter, and you film what you want to film, and that's your personal eye. I think is going to mean more to the other people rather than a fixed camera up at the top of the fence of a baseball game, just capturing the general view. Oh, he's up to bat now. Look, it's no, that doesn't reach people. By
technologists. I mean, that was like the trend that was coming out of the Valley, or I was like, that was in the space. I'm seeing that these fixed cameras makes your gym smart. It's funny because I moved down to LA recently, and I started talking to more producers, and like, well, what do you think about this thing? There were sports photographers and stuff, and well, that looks interesting, but that video is going to be bloody boring. I mean, It's like,
exactly.
I was like, that's so, I mean, it was just to hear that was kind of like, a knock in the face and just going, I mean, I didn't really think, yeah, you're right. I mean, especially as someone who does video production, they're with the camera, getting those angles and so now, we use the DJI Osmos, the handheld stabilizers with the iPhones. We get on the court. We get these awesome kind of, it almost sometimes looks like it's NBA 2K. We can kind of get really awesome camera angles, and we like to say that we're really making good content for the small screen.
I think that's all. I think that's the key there, because I love that you use the video game analogy. I love the fact that you guys are on the court, because it's different. People think it's less than, and the NBA is incredible in their presentation. It should stay and improve upon itself, but there's a reason why I loved watching the Big Three. I thought it was very entertaining. They did it in a different way. It's still basketball. It's a form of basketball. So there's no difference between the Big Three and the leagues that you're recording. I like that stuff too, because it's just like you were saying, you brought that up earlier. You got all these different styles, The NBA, we have a little feedback here. Basketball offers an opportunity for flexibility. I mentioned at the very beginning, it's very much predicated on style. And so the fact that you guys are on the court, the fact that I know you come from the drone world, I can envision at some point sooner than later, as drones become a whole lot more affordable, a lot easier for most people to be able to control, I can see 1 or 2 drones in a basketball game, as long as you don't get knocked over by some of the passes.
And I mean, it's just a matter of software. I mean, we prototype, we have made software that makes it very easy to film soccer using a drone, and it keeps it on a cable. And you could imagine, putting cones down on the ground of where that virtual cable is. It's really just a matter of software. We have, and that's the thing that kind of hit me over the head on that phone call is, all the tools are at Best Buy. It's not about the devices anymore. It's just the software that makes the magic happen and builds kind of the engagement platform around the game. That knows how to, we're all, hell, we're even at the games all holding our phones, looking at the game. You can go to any game now and there's a bunch of phones. Like, we're already acting the part. There's just, so we're working on making that software to glue it all together and make it into something that's comprehensive. And storytelling comes into a big part of this too, is how do you make it, how do you be able to tell that, eventually, turn it into a story that's good for the consumer?
I was going to go there next. You mentioned about being able to look at the game in real time. That's part of the storytelling to me. Tell us a little bit about where you guys are going on the tech side, as far as I read something and you discussed with me before about how some of this footage can be pieced together for the sake of the athlete for presentation after the fact, and talk a little bit about the stats and anything that goes into the tech of the game.
Like I said, from a hardware perspective, it's all mobile app. Right now we're using the new iPhone 12 Pros. These things are just like so awesome.
Ordered mine last night.
Yeah, the camera is out of control, and the 5G is it's crazy. It's crazy. But so then we use a scorekeeper to keep track of the score. We really focus on points. We're really, like I said, it's a really an entertainment and engagement platform. So it's all about points, and then the camera that you can log into the game. So the scorekeeper makes a virtual game. Cameras can log in to live broadcast. It automatically overlays the score and then streams it onto our platform. And on our platform, we like to say we're gamifying the game. So we are going to be building engagement elements very inspired by Twitch and other esports, for fans at the game or away from the game to engage with the game and the AR overlays that are on the game, and help the teams sell digital goods during the game and make money during the game. That's kind of this live gameplay experience, but then we'll always keep a clean cut version of the video. We track all the timestamps of the events. We use it to help make highlights. And I will say that, we're really focused on creating workflows to help people make content and make entertainment. One of the things that I've kind of learned is, automation doesn't always necessarily make, kind of going back to the camera in the gym, like you can't really count on automation to make entertainment. I mean, there's, you talk about style in basketball, it's like style in editing too. I mean, it's like being creative and making sure you get the right in points and out points, and
absolutely.
the clips are the right length and all this stuff. It's, we think more about giving that control to the users and allowing them to do things, than rather just saying, oh yeah, we're going to take all this video, throw it in a machine and give you something that you might not be happy with, or 1 in 100 to really love. So we're really focused on making, I like to call it like workflow tools, for making it very easy to live stream the game, post produce your highlights, and engage your audiences.
Engaging audiences, stories, everything. And, it'd be really great as these leagues grow through the show. It would be great to see little 15-second, 30-second video bios of the key players that we're about to see during the game, after the game. I think that stuff would be essential. What do you think about that? I mean, so this gives
it's funny because
someone,
that just came up.
Go ahead.
Talking about that last night, and it's funny because I don't, we have social media now, so like, especially for someone who's trying to build their brand. I mean, a lot of these influencers that play sport, they're kind of already giving you their lives. I mean, sometimes I try to figure out if the need that, like, are we, I mean, for as a startup that's small, we like to focus and really like to think about what need we're filling. And right now at this juncture in time, it's the gameplay. It's, you see these people, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, we can follow everybody's individual storyline on Instagram and Snap and what have you, but then you find out that they played in this game, and you're like, well, where's the game? And the game's not there. So, so I mean, I think, and there will be this dance between us and, like, we don't really want to, like, we don't really think of ourselves replacing a social network. Like, I don't think we really want to supplant and supply, and I mean, kind of flood the zone, if you will. Like, I think that sports is good news, and in an era of a lot of bad news or fake news, like, hey, what if we just flood the zone with sport? I mean, every other media, you go to the TV, you flip the channel, how many are sports channels? You open up a newspaper, how many pages are the sports page? Like, there's most other distribution platforms for media have a large section dedicated to sports, and social media doesn't have that right now. So, we're kind of looking to fill that niche. We want to play nicely. We know that sports is all about promotion. We don't think about, like, putting it behind paywalls, because that doesn't really help anybody. It also, from a financial standpoint, has proven to not really pay off. I mean, the churn rate at the end of seasons is insane.
Correct.
So, like, we're really thinking about, like, innovative ways, looking from the esports industry, how to make the dollar while allowing sports just to, go be free, and it's kind of comes from, like I said, my experience with the music disruption. Information wants to be free. These songs wanted to be free. These highlights want to be free. And when they are free, they can go viral and hopefully end up on ESPN's top 10. And, I'm not going to be claiming a copyright issue if I see that happening. We will love it if that happens.
I think that's the mindset I was referring to earlier about the altruistic part. Altruistic might be a little too heavy a word for it, but that's the piece that I really love. I love it from the perspective of, you're creating a situation. Listen, when someone like Rupert Murdoch has this successful, one of the 5-6 media conglomerates in the world, and he sells it. And I just want to keep the live stuff, news and sports, live news, live sports. That tells you something. Because most of these other companies aren't necessarily owned by a family or an individual. They're major corporations. Fox, when Rupert Murdoch was in charge of it, I enjoyed following, strictly because you had more of an opportunity to see how this one person, what they were thinking, and how it would basically flow down the chain of Fox. And it's a big deal. I don't hear many people talking about it. It's the fact of, this guy just went all in on just live news and sports. That's the niche I think that you guys are covering. You guys are covering live sports. All the other stuff we're talking about, what it can do and how he can do it, that's great. That's awesome. You have to have that stuff. But the fact remains, you've created a live sports opportunity for any and everyone out there. It's not just basketball. You can leverage it for anything.
Totally.
You're focusing on basketball because that's what you're really good at. You love hoop. You played all your life, and it's the best one that showcases because of the originality
Yeah,
and all that
I'd
other
say
showcasing.
I would love to say it's honestly totally because of the entertainment value and the
100%.
leagues, and it's a coincidence that I love basketball and I love being out there. It's
Not a
as far as
coincidence.
that,
You
yeah, maybe
purposely
it's
went that
not.
way.
Maybe,
That's a good thing. That's a
that
beautiful
is,
thing.
yeah, I
But
know
it's live.
it's a
That's the beautiful part.
it's a beautiful synergy, totally. And I mean,
That's the
like you
part I
said, it's
love. That's what I really loved about this. I think that everyone should really dive into what you've created here. Whether you want to check it out for your kids' game, and grow it from there, your men's league. I met someone. I had some tech issues, as I told you recently, and when I brought some of the hardware that we needed repaired to this place, the husband and wife happened to be there. He states to me, he goes, I want to introduce you to my wife. So wife comes over, introduces me, and right away she looks at me. I'm 6'4", right? And she's like, I play in them. Okay. It's one of those things. Tall brother. You must play sports. Right away she thinks. And I'm joking mostly, but she comes over because she says that, and right away she says, she begins to state that I play in a women's basketball league. Now, mind you, she's 50, in good shape. And right away she goes, I played in, oh, did you play in college? She goes, no, I didn't play. She goes, I just love basketball. I love basketball. It's great. It's dynamic and blah, blah, blah. She goes, we think we're moving faster than we really are, but
yeah.
we're out there doing it. That's the part I appreciate. And I think that love, the passion, the why, of course, I always talk about the why of everything. To me, that's
Yeah.
the most important piece of anything that we do. So a small gathering, a small league of maybe 6 teams like that, all professional women, moms, grandmas, and they get out there and they play hoop at least once, twice a week. And, I think there are so many leagues like that across the country. People try to find unique ways rather than, no offense to power walking, rather than just power walking every day, rather than just running 3 miles every day. Those things are great. I like doing all those things, but we want to change things up. And so you don't always have to be a league like Rucker or Venice. You can actually just imagine creating something live and interesting for your family and friends with this as well. And that's just a small piece of what you guys can do.
And what's so interesting is that's the most inspiring stuff to the right people. I mean,
right.
What I was finding is, as professional sports, building this Chase Center, Warriors was my team. Like, I can't relate to Curry on the court anymore. Right. I mean, like, I'm never going to play on that court. I'm never going to know what it's like to be under those lights. I mean, I'm never I can't even afford tickets to that court right now. Like, but when for me, maybe looking at Venice, or for another older woman looking at that woman, I mean, they can see it, they can relate to it. They can look at a court and say, I could be on that court. I could do that. I can. Absolutely. And it bridges this gap that I think exists today in the world. And it manifests itself in, if you look at sports, and a lot of sports tech right now is fascinating. It's all around sports betting. And I just find it really interesting how many people are sports fans that don't play sports, and they stopped doing it.
Huge.
They stopped. I mean, what's like the sports fall off rate? And it's how healthy it is, how good it is for you, how much it changes your perspective. There's so many positive reasons to be playing sports, and that any extra inspiration that we can be getting or giving to people to realize that, that park that you walk by all the time, hey, there's probably someone who plays soccer there.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not unreasonable for you to be able to go out there and do it too. Hey, look, here's people that look like you doing it at a park nearby. And they're not pros. It doesn't matter. They're still having fun and maybe doing stuff that's amazing.
It's interesting on that note. One of the main themes actually through the bunker that we speak on quite a bit is about the even though we love technology, we're all tech geeks, and that's why we're talking, and that's part of why we're talking. But the most important thing that we always come back to almost on every episode is the fact of, as much as we love tech, we fear losing that human connection, which to me
Oh
is
man.
by far the most important thing. Everything you just discussed that is about bringing us together. Sports, that's why we love sports. That's why you can go pass by certain parks on Saturdays and Sundays, and you think, man, is there a carnival or a fair going on? Because you just see hundreds, if not thousands of people in a big park. No, they have a couple of soccer tournaments. I'm talking about adult soccer tournaments. You're talking where people who work all week
Right.
and they just want to get together and play sports on the weekends. There's not much that brings us together like sports. There
Yep.
are certain things that may do it a little bit more, a little bit less, but this to me is why I push it. I stepped away from sports. I played a little bit. I was on a team in college. I'll be honest about it. And I didn't play that much. So I practiced more than I actually played. But I was able to get in school, was completely taken care of. I did okay with that. But the most important piece is I walked away from it. I didn't want to have anything to do with it by the time I was 23, 24 years old. And I felt like guys that came from similar neighborhoods to the one I grew up in, I thought that when you spend your whole life focusing on just sports, and what's the percentage of people, let's just use basketball and football, the two biggies, less than 1%, 1%, right? People
Right.
who play make it to the next level. And even if you do make it to the next level, the longevity is very, very slim that you're actually going to have some sort of longevity in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I always felt, I'm like, why are we focusing all our energy on something that by the time you're in your early to mid 20s, you're washed out? That makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd say beginning around 20 years ago, the opportunities as a result of tech and television and all that began to expand. So even if you had an opportunity to play at the pro level, or if you didn't, if you played at D1, D2, whatever it was, you still had an opportunity to venture into some other area within the sports world, whether it was to be an agent, work for one of the
Right.
teams, work for
Right.
one of the television networks, which was the biggest thing. So many different variations in front of the screen, behind the screen. And so sports to me has now become this behemoth that I think is an essential. That's why I don't want it to go sideways in giving up its core values of bringing people together for the right reasons, rooting for the crosses, race, religion, age. It brings
Oh
people
yeah.
together like
And it breaks the
very
barriers down. It breaks
100%.
these are
Yes.
lines like directly from Mandela. And
Yeah, I
his
noticed
famous
you had
quote.
that on something. So you had explained that a little bit, why you put that up there.
Oh, we're incredibly, that was kind of the like I'm going to mention the knot of, kind of chasing this dream and then realizing it was so much bigger than I originally envisioned, and
Mm-hmm.
coming across Mandela and sports has the power to change the world. His quote and his speech there, we're incredibly inspired by that, and it really actually kind of sparked a train of thought that is now our podcast, which
Mm.
is, so we have a podcast now called Just Play.
Just play. We'll put
And
it up on the
it's
screen for you
just,
too. Sure.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Just Play, and it's on Spotify and Apple, and it's dedicated to finding tangible ways that sports can change the world. Because I do
Mm-hmm.
think that we all inherently believe this,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's like, what are, it's kind of an abstract thought. And so what are some like actions that, experiences people had in the community, or what are actions that people can do, or things that they can replicate? And
Mm-hmm.
actually one of these street ball leagues is kind of an interesting, now that I think about it, what I find similar from all of the street ball leagues I've talked to is they all at one point went through Rucker Park or New York
Right.
City and
Mm-hmm.
saw it and said, why doesn't my town have that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go do that. It's like, sometimes it's like a hearing on repeat, like the same story. And you're going,
Right.
wow, talk about, inspiration causing local change, and this is people who are on the vacation, they go see street basketball, and then they take it back to their home city, and they do it. And then they build community events, and these are, in their own town. So, but anyway, yeah, we are very fascinated with how to use sports to change the world in a positive direction,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because I think we're kind of sitting at this juncture of, COVID, and looking back at the social dilemma of Facebook and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
how we kind of let tech do whatever, and are we happy with it? And so we really try hard. I mean, I would almost even say that we kind of feel a responsibility, especially after seeing these previous tech companies. You know, this is something that's incredibly powerful. Like we're playing, like sometimes I feel like we're playing
Absolutely.
with nuclear energy here. You know, are
Mhm.
we going to make a bomb or a power plant? You know, we really want to make a power plant.
Right. Right. I
And
get it.
and for me too, coming from robotics, I always thought it was funny. We would get this question, and I started in robotics as a 16, 17-year-old. I mean, that
Mhm.
was part of the benefits of growing up in Silicon Valley, is we had these mentors that were amazing. We started a robotics team, and one of the questions that is really popular is, are robots going to take our job? Like, what are we going to do when the
Mm.
robots take over, and all these things? And I always had a response that was kind of like, yeah, that's fine if they do, but I'm going to be playing basketball or
Right.
snowboarding. Like
That's
that's where I'm
awesome.
going to be.
That's good.
But now that we're down this path, and it's been a lot of thinking on this subject, I actually think there's something potentially profound to saying kind of, what are the humans, what are we going to do? And not be so gloom about like, oh, the robots and it's all going to be AI, and it's all going to be Bitcoin, and there's going to be the singularity, and there's going to be this other thing that takes over humanity, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, you could think like that. You could, if you focus on that, that's what's going to happen. Or you could focus on the fact that we all love sports. It creates tons of jobs that can't be replaced. Like,
Mhm.
like you're saying, from the person on the field to the broadcaster to
Mhm.
the person who gets the creative camera angles. Um, and, what if we focused on like the fact that we don't really want to be picking strawberries because it's terrible for our backs, or agricultural jobs that cause hernias. Like, what if we, like, what's the problem with
Right.
focusing on building kind of an economy that's based on sport, that's based on us on appreciating each other, and focus on ourselves and our
Mhm.
communities, rather than, I think all the talk about the future is like AI, ML, blockchain. And I just finished this book that was just, it's just so great. Have you read any of Yuval Noah Harari, Sapiens or Homo Deus?
Have not.
Oh my, okay, you have to
Mhm.
read. Homo Deus is just, it's fantastic, and it goes into a lot of this. And the thing that really stuck out to me the most, that I think threads, is um, he likes to say that we are all living in our ancestors' dreams. And if you think about the past, like, yeah, we are. I mean, they all dreamed of, having enough food and getting rid of
Right.
plagues, which we
Right.
mostly did for most of the time.
Right.
Right. But,
Mhm.
increasing the lifespan, and, it was always kind of about enriching humans' experience.
Mhm.
But we're standing at a place right now where all of our dreams are, like I said, like blockchain, robotics, AI. They are things that aren't us.
Right.
And
And real.
and actually in
Mhm.
Silicon Valley, as like Singularity University things started to come up, it kind of affected. I realized I kind of had this weird revulsion to it, and now stepping back, I'm realizing it might be because like it wasn't about us. Like all of a sudden, like this focus has been, and tech has been taken away from what about us, and there's more of these movements around humanism and team human and things like that, which I think are only going to gain in strength, and it's something that we should really really listen to. And it's also, I don't think that difficult to
Right.
enact. It's something like the show, for example. We're
Mhm.
going to be working to build an economic infrastructure for athletes in the game. It's going to use all of those tools. We're going to end up using AI and blockchain and all those things. I'm
Mhm.
not walking around saying it. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's the
For
future.
the purpose of.
Oh, I
That's
can't.
exactly what it is.
Oh, I hate it so much. And people tell
Mhm.
me, oh, you should be putting AI and all this stuff on your slides, and because
Yeah.
it helps, because that's what investors want to hear. And I'm just like, I don't. No.
Right.
Like I personally like can't. Like
Mhm.
it's just antithetical to me. And we like to say one of our taglines is, "We are the future of sports." Emphasis on we.
Mhm.
Everybody else that plays.
Mhm.
And yeah, we'll use those tools, but I'm not walking around talking about it. It doesn't
Right.
matter what those tools are. What matters is that everybody plays.
I like that. I love that actually. We just wrapped an episode regarding how we're losing us
Oh yeah.
And you're watching these incredible athletes. And let's just start with the pro level, because those are the
Yeah.
ones that actually draw the most eyes. And people that are, and I love the wagering space. I love that the fan base has become so huge, and it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun to root against and for and around people who are doing the exact same thing. But there's this thought process. I think the fanaticism is what we deal with. That's kind of ruined it. People have
Mhm.
the capability, because of technology, they can dive deep into every single facet of the game, which is great. I enjoy doing that. I'm a total, analytics geek, and I always absorb all that information and analyze it a certain way and ask what if and blah, 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 and start in engaging conversations of that nature. But the negative side, as you were saying, somewhat that's come from it is people have grown kind of callous to certain things. That's kind of
Yeah.
an artificial thing to me. It's like it's human to engage and jump into it, but sometimes people have grown this callous, which to me a callus is artificial. What do? You take it off your hands when you have it all the time. It's an artificial something, and we've grown to be so condescending to these incredible, what the performances that we're seeing from these athletes today is
Oh man.
incredible.
Yeah.
They're superhumans in a
Yep.
way. So I stated recently, I think it's almost unfair to compare any athlete whose career concluded before, say, the 1990s, someone that played in the 70s on to like the 80s,
Oh my goodness.
as great as Magic. Magic is an exception. Certain other players are exceptions, but for the most part, those guys are smoking at halftime. They're doing all kinds of crazy things, and I'm exaggerating quite a bit.
Yeah,
But
maybe a little before man. Well, but yeah, almost. Yeah.
bottom
Earlier.
line is, at some point, well, more times than not, alcohol or cigarettes somehow made their way to the locker room, in and
Right.
around. And so, compared to today's athletes, the training and the technology to
Oh,
allow them to dive deep, the performance level of the guys today compared to 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's a whole different human. And
you're right. Totally.
so I think that the allowing to continue the same theme, con- constantly ground ourselves in connecting, the natural human thing of connecting. I think you actually get more enjoyment out of it that way. It's great to
Yes.
look at the stats, great to look at the tech and the AI and all that stuff. It still leaves a shallow feeling, in my opinion, when
Yeah, it's like
you
the dopamine
appreciate it.
rush. It's
100%.
the dopamine rush of
100%.
the
And
notification.
that's what tech companies do to us, right? Or
Yeah.
we allow them to do to us. So
Yeah.
um, I love that. We're in a complete agreement with that. We talk about that a lot here at the bunker. We definitely deal with that. Listen, man, I know you're a busy guy. You have, the energy of a freaking star. That's why I'm like, I always want to grab you, because you always have this thing going, and I love that. I love that, because to me, it takes people with that type of energy to make anything happen. Because as you were stating a second ago, you're going to get all these, but what if, and you should, and blah blah blah. You get all these other
Oh man.
opinions that aren't necessarily going to be conducive to you being successful in the way you envisioned it, or envisioned it from day one. So I want to keep the lines of communication open between us. As you're growing this thing in 2021, no matter what happens with the pandemic and all that, we'll work our way through that. I want to make sure that we're kept in the loop as to what you guys are doing. And I want to be able to bring you back a few times, and let's just have
I'd love
quick
that.
chats, 15, 20 minutes here or there, and put it out there for people to see. Anything that we can do. Our number one thing is to engage with people who are all in their life's passion. I think you have a little bit of that in you.
Oh,
so,
I
so
might be. Yeah, yeah. I'm still
just
working
a
on it.
little.
I'm a little bit of an addict. I
Uh,
need to pick up a different
Listen,
hobby somewhere. Maybe learn an instrument.
no, 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 no. I may seem somewhat like a calm guy, but I have the exact same energy you do for what I do. Trust me.
No, I see that. No, I very
So
much
it never
see that.
seems like work or a heavy lift. It just, I love what I do, and I can hear it coming out in how you describe any and everything about the show. So I want to always surround myself with people that are like that. I think it's important for everybody to be involved in things of that nature, because everybody has something. And I want to encourage everyone to do that something that's in them, that's of interest to them. And any way I can help, push it out to the world even a little bit more. I want to be involved in that. So I want to thank you for taking the time to come in today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We'll
This is
definitely
fantastic.
have another conversation very soon with the show. We're going to keep our sights on you guys as you take off over the next coming Verizon and all the rest of you guys. You guys need to get off your duff and you need to come talk to Dan. I'm telling you what's happening here at this level with the
Telecom
show.
carriers.
All of them, man. I think that I loved your description, and we'll leave on this. I loved what you said about someone who may visit Rucker and they may say, why don't I have that in my neighborhood? Why don't I have that? And I think that's a feeling I think more people have than people may think. And I don't care where you live in our country or in any other country. If you were able to leverage a system like Dan's, just imagine the community you can build within your specific region. To me, I like that. Those are the things that are of interest to me. That's that building of the connections, the natural human connections, more and more leveraging technology for the foundational connection that we all have. So thanks again, my man.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. And yeah, man, looking forward to onwards and upwards to much more.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to doing more of this and continue this conversation.
You got it, man.